Hi, my name is Elizabeth Sycon, and I'm an oral cancer survivor. I'm going to share with you my journey with oral cancer. But before I do, I always want to give thanks to my Heavenly Father, my husband, my family and friends, because without them, my journey would have been much more difficult. A little background information on me. I was born and raised in Houston, Texas in April of 1980. My husband and I are high school sweethearts. I've been with him since I was 14 years old. We ended up moving from Houston to San Antonio in the summer of '99 so that we both could go to UTSA. I ended up going to the nursing school and he went to the business school. And all throughout nursing school, I always envisioned myself as a labor and delivery nurse because I always thought that that was the happy side of nursing. But it wasn't until my last rotation of clinicals that I fell in love with the oncology unit. And so I decided that that's what I was going to do. And I ended up finding a job as an oncology nurse, and while working there, we decided to start creating our own family. And we had 3 daughters. Isabel, who's now 8, Mariah is now 6, and Abigail is now 4. And life just couldn't have been any better. So I thought. I enjoyed being part of a cancer patient's journey, whether it was holding their hair as they threw up in the toilet, or giving them a hug, holding their hand as they got chemo, or just sitting next to them in complete silence, just because you knew that they needed you there. I never thought cancer would affect me other than being a nurse, but it did. I mean, I was young, I was only 28. I never had the risk factors of oral cancer. I was not a smoker or a drinker. Later found out that my tumor tested negative for HPV. But as we all know, cancer doesn't discriminate. So you might be thinking, what were your symptoms? How was it detected? How bad was it? It was all started after having my second daughter, Mariah, in 2006. I began to have some right ear pain, not major pain, but definitely some discomfort that it bothered me enough to want to get it checked out. And since I was either seeing an OB or my PCP, it would take too long to actually get in to get an appointment with them, so I would just go to urgent care clinic for immediate relief of the ear pain. But every time I would go in, they would just say, I don't see anything in there, it's just some earwax, how about if we irrigate it and remove some of the earwax and relieve some of the pressure there. And that would help. And so that's what I remained to do. I would do at-home earwax kits to help alleviate some of the discomfort. And I did that for about 2 years. During this whole time of me having the ear pain, I was always seeing, like I said, my OB or my PCP, and even my dentist. I made sure to always go and get my teeth cleaned every 6 months. I was also getting some dental work done in between this time. So I was always under the care of a doctor, and it wasn't as if I was not being taken care of by somebody or under somebody's care. That if somebody could have put all the pieces together, they probably could have found it much earlier. It ended up being 2 years later, and after I had my third daughter, Abigail, in 2008, I began to notice more and more symptoms. I was really fatigued, but the doctors kept telling me, you just had a baby and you have 2 toddlers at home, who wouldn't be tired? So I shrugged it off. I began to notice that my jaw wouldn't open on the right side whenever I tried to take a big bite out of a hamburger or a sandwich. And I thought maybe I have some TMJ issues. I'm going to go and see the PCP and get this taken care of. So I made an appointment with my PCP, but before I could actually go and see him, it was about a few days beforehand, I started to notice that there was a lymph node in the right side of my neck that was enlarged. And so I said, well, it's a good thing I'm going to go see my PCP. I'm going to go ahead and tell him about this lymph node as I'm telling him about everything else. So that day that I went to go see him, I told him about all of my symptoms for the past 2 years and about my TMJ issues that I thought I had and my lymph node that I had found a few days beforehand. And so he checks out my ears and he sees nothing. He feels my lymph node and he goes, yes, I feel it's enlarged. And then he looks in my mouth and he's like, wow, your tonsils look so angry. And so he said, you know what, we're going to try a course of antibiotics and I want you to follow up with me. So 2 weeks later, I did follow up with him and he looked in my mouth and he's like, wow, he goes, they're still very angry. He goes, I had hoped that it was just a case of tonsillitis. He goes, but Elizabeth, I'm really afraid you have cancer. And I was taken by surprise, but he knew my line of work, so he knew he could confide in me and tell me what he thought. He goes, I really need you to go see a specialist. He goes, I think it's something serious. And so I did. I made an appointment to see my specialist. After that, I went home to look in the mirror and look and see for myself what everybody was seeing. And I was just amazed. I had so many emotions going through me. I thought, should I have been inspecting my own mouth the whole time? I mean, I had no reason to think that there was something going wrong inside my mouth. I was angry. I couldn't understand what was happening and why it was happening, and I could see for myself that the mass had already gone to the uvula and it was so huge, and I stuck my finger back there and I could feel that there was something wrong. There just wasn't, the tongue was not coming apart from the backside of my mouth, but I just couldn't put into words how I felt. So many emotions going on. And I would frantically research online different signs and symptoms of what I had going on and trying to put everything together. And my husband knew something was wrong with me. He approached me one day and was like, what's going on? And I finally broke down and I told him what I thought and what the doctor had told me and what he thought. And he urged me, you need to go see the specialist right away. And so when my appointment finally came up, I went to see the specialist, the ears, nose, and throat specialist, and he thought for sure, I was there for all the wrong reasons, and he thought that I'd be in and out in no time because I was so young and I didn't have a history of anything. So he looked in my mouth, and that's when complete silence had entered the room. He was in shock, and he quickly took a biopsy and said, it'll be a few days to get the results. But he saw the mass, and he was like, let's see what the outcome is. And so I ended up having to go home and meditate on all this. And I remember not telling very many people at all. I told just very few friends, and prayed about it so much that whatever it was, that it would be benign and not malignant, because I wanted to be there for my daughters, and your whole life flashes through your eyes. And it was, I remember at church on the Wednesday night prayer service, I remember praying to God, please don't let this be cancer. And he spoke very clearly to me that this was it, and it was a journey I was going to have to go through. And after that day, I had a complete peace in me that I was going to be okay at the end of it. And so on March 27th of 2009, I sat in the doctor's office waiting for my test results with my husband and my mother at my side. And I heard the words that no person wants to hear. I heard, I'm sorry, Elizabeth, you have cancer. I later went on to seek multiple opinions because I wanted the best possible care for myself. And while seeking out all these opinions, I remember one doctor saying, "You have a 19% chance at a 10-year survival." 19% chance because I was stage 4 cancer patient. It already had spread through my lymph nodes and my neck. I ended up at MD Anderson in Houston because a humble doctor said that was the best place for the best possible care and the best possible outcome for me. So I ended up preparing for the battle of my life. I did 9 weeks of induction chemo, and it caused me to lose all my hair, which wasn't really a big deal because we tried to make it fun for my daughters, and we had a hair shaving ceremony, and we would buy wigs, and the girls and I would dress up with all of our wigs on, and we would go out. The chemo ended up suppressing my immune system so bad that I ended up getting an infection from a scab, and they had to put me on some antibiotics, and I didn't know that I was allergic to that particular type of antibiotics, and I ended up with the head to toe rash, and my lips swelled up, my tongue swelled up, and it just wasn't fun. It wasn't the best start to my treatment. And I thought to myself, could it get any worse? But we ended up finding out that the chemo wasn't doing anything significant to shrink the tumor, so they decided to cut it short, and they said we need to go to surgery. In June of 2009, I underwent my 14-hour surgery to replace the missing tongue and jaw from the right side of my mouth. They used 6 inches of my right fibula bone to replace some of my jaw, and they also used some of the same leg muscle and tissue to replace some of the missing tongue and oropharyngeal space there. I ended up in the ICU for 3 days, and I woke up to a trach in my neck, a feeding tube in my stomach, and an incision line that went from behind my ear to the about midline of my neck, where they removed 50 of my lymph nodes, and 10 of them ended up testing positive for cancer. I did not like my hospital stay just because I didn't get along with my trach. I had a very hard time with it, but nothing would be in comparison as to the difficulty I would have with radiation. 6 weeks after my surgery, I was to start chemo radiation again, and I would do that for 6 weeks. So I did 6 weeks of chemo radiation every day, Monday through Friday, for 6 weeks. And for 6 weeks, I threw up every day, multiple times a day. I just could not keep anything in. I was severely malnourished, dehydrated, and it was just the weakest point of my whole treatment. I was just ready to give up. I couldn't take it anymore. 2 weeks before I was to finish treatment, I just didn't have the same yearning to live. I didn't have that fight in me anymore. I just felt defeated. I remember mustering up whatever energy I could to come to the living room couch just to watch my daughters play. And I remember visioning what my life would be without them, without me in it, for them. I remember trying to picture all the milestones in their lives that I would miss. You know, would I live to see them graduate? Would I live long enough to watched them walk down the aisle. It was a really low point in my treatment. But then I remember 19% chance. That's what the doctor said. I'm not a statistic, and I'm not a number. So I had only one choice, and that was to fight it and beat cancer. And that's what I did. My journey did not end at the conclusion of treatment. I had to now adapt to all the side effects from it. I had to regain my strength, learn to walk differently with my missing leg. I had to learn how to speak differently because my speech was impaired. I went to speech therapy and learned how to pronounce things differently. I had to start learning how to eat different foods because the foods I used to eat, I couldn't do anymore. Everything has to be bland and mushy and soft. Red pepper and black pepper and red sauces just bring tears to my eyes because it burns so much. And that's due to the radiation. 18 months after I finished treatment, I finally was able to get rid of my feeding tube. And I was 70 pounds lighter from all the treatment. Everything was just different for me. I had to use a thickener for the longest time in all of my drinks because the liquid would go down so fast down my throat that I would choke and aspirate. I just recently started graduating to drinking just plain water by itself without choking anymore. Everything I eat has to be on the left side of my mouth because the right side just does not function the way it used to. I can't feel very good, so I often bite my tongue, so I just learned to eat everything on the left side now. It's just a different way of life for me. It's my ability to speak, to eat, to taste food, or to even passionately kiss my husband will never be the same. It's okay, because I'm alive, and I'm cancer-free, and now I just want to spread awareness on this type of disease. With the help of the Aura Cancer Foundation, which I found early on in my treatment, we are helping spread awareness of this disease. The Aura Cancer Foundation is a non-profit organization founded by Brian Hill, who is also an Aura cancer survivor. It is the foundation and my personal goal to help spread awareness to the general public about what oral cancer is, the risk factors, and the signs and symptoms. One way that I am able to do this is by sharing my story and by putting on an awareness event here in San Antonio. I can't tell you how many people that I have come across that have never heard of oral cancer until me. They never knew that their dentist should be screening them. So this is one way I can give back. I truly believe that creating awareness will help save lives.